poor maid was forced to a blind debt to settle debt. They did not expect the Mafia boss to do this. On a stormy night, a poor maid signs a blind debt to save her family. The creditor stays hidden until a Mafia boss steps from the dark and says the debt is his. He takes her to a glass tower, puts a silver bracelet on her wrist, and says it's for safety. At a glittering gala, one touch from a stranger makes the room freeze, and the boss shows how far he'll go to protect what's his. But a louder secret is waiting. A missing ledger that could burn the whole city. A friend turns out to be a snake. A van door slams. A camera starts recording. And the one man everyone fears is the only one racing to get her back. Is this protection or possession? What's inside that ledger? And who will it destroy? When he says you're mine, is it a cage or the only way she survives? The rain drums against tall windows, each drop catching city lights like scattered gems. Isabel stands motionless in the center of the suite, her worn suitcase a pitiful anchor beside her. The space around her gleams with wealth. Italian marble floors, cream leather furnishings, abstract art in muted golds that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Her hands won't stop shaking. She clenches them into fists, fighting the urge to cry. The events of the last hour play on repeat in her mind. The collector's cold smile, the scratch of pen on crimson paper, the sudden appearance of Leon Viscari in that rain-soaked doorway. His presence had filled the narrow kitchen, making everything else seem small and dim. "You have 1 minute," he'd said, voice soft as silk over steel. No explanation, no room for argument. Thunder growls outside, closer now. Isabel jumps, her heart racing. She forces herself to breathe deeply, to think clearly. The suite, while beautiful, is clearly a cage. 2 doors, one leading to what appears to be a bedroom, the other firmly locked. The main entrance she'd been ushered through moments ago. The covered plate sits outside her bedroom door like an offering or a test. Steam curls from beneath the silver dome, carrying the scent of expensive food she's too nauseous to consider. The elegant table setting only emphasizes how out of place she is, still wearing her plain black work dress, smelling of cleaning products. She moves to the windows, pressing her palm against the cool glass. They stretch from floor to ceiling, offering a dizzying view of the harbor. Boats bob like toys far below, their lights blurred by sheets of rain. The height makes her stomach lurch. No escape that way. The bedroom door stands ajar, revealing glimpses of silk bedding and plush carpets. A stack of fresh towels sits on a chair, along with what appears to be new clothing. The thoughtfulness of these provisions somehow makes everything worse. This isn't a temporary arrangement. This is someone who planned for her arrival. Distant elevator chimes echo. Through the walls, Isabel's spine stiffens at each sound, wondering if it's him returning. But the noises fade, leaving her alone with the storm and her racing thoughts. She picks up her suitcase, holding it like a shield as she paces the perimeter of her gilded prison. What does he want? The question circles her mind like a trapped bird. "Service in lieu of cash," he'd said. But what kind of service? Her imagination spins dark possibilities. She's heard whispers about the Viscari family, about their control over the city's shadows, about debts paid in blood. The suite's lighting dims automatically as lightning flashes outside, as if responding to nature's display. Everything here is automated, controlled, monitored. She wonders if there are cameras watching her now, recording her fear and confusion for his entertainment. Her mother's face flashes in her mind, pale and drawn in her hospital bed. Her sister's future, balanced on the edge of a knife. The weight of their needs settles on her shoulders like a physical burden. She'd signed that contract for them and she'd do it again, but understanding why doesn't make the reality any easier to bear. Isabel forces herself to explore the suite methodically, the way she would catalog a new household's needs. The bathroom gleams with marble and chrome, stocked with products that probably cost more than her monthly groceries. The closet stands empty, except for a few hanging garment bags, their contents hidden, but undoubtedly expensive. Everything is new, pristine, waiting. She finds herself back at the covered plate, staring at its silver dome. Her stomach growls traitorously. When was the last time she'd eaten? This morning feels like a lifetime ago, but accepting his food feels like accepting something else, something she's not ready to name. The rain intensifies, drumming against the windows in waves. City lights blur and stretch through the water-streaked glass, creating abstract patterns on the marble floor. The effect is beautiful and disorienting, like everything else in this place. A sudden gust of wind makes the windows creak. Isabel wraps her arms around herself, feeling small and exposed in the vast space. The elevator hums again, closer this time, and her heart leaps into her throat. But like before, it passes by, leaving her in suspense. She moves to the bedroom finally, driven by exhaustion more than acceptance. The bed is enormous, drowning in expensive linens, but she can't bring herself to touch it. Instead, she perches on the edge of a leather armchair, her suitcase still clutched in her lap. The storm shows no signs of letting up. Lightning illuminates the room in stark bursts, thunder following closer each time. Isabel watches rain trace patterns down the windows, trying to make sense of her new reality. Everything has changed in the space of an hour, as quick and violent as the storm itself. The covered plate remains untouched outside her door, a reminder of her captor's presence. Even in his absence, steam no longer rises from beneath the dome, the food growing cold while she sits in uncertain vigil. The elevator's distant hum becomes a rhythm she can't ignore, each sound making her wonder if this time, he'll return. The gray light of pre-dawn seeps through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting shadows across Isabel's tired face. She hasn't slept, spending the night perched in that leather chair, watching the storm fade into morning. Her work dress is wrinkled now, a reminder of how quickly life can change. The fabric clings uncomfortably to her skin, marked by the invisible fingerprints of yesterday's panic and today's uncertainty. The suite reveals itself in the growing light. All clean lines and cool marble, more like a museum than a home. Every surface gleams with untouched perfection, as if waiting for life to begin. Isabel moves through the space with practiced efficiency, her housemaid's instincts taking inventory. Her fingers trail along the edge of an imported side table, feeling for dust that isn't there. The kitchen gleams with unused appliances and empty counters, stainless steel reflecting her hollow expression as she passes. A coffee maker sits ready, its digital display blinking blue in the dim light. She opens cabinets to find them fully stocked with expensive brands she's only seen in magazines. Imported coffees, teas in gold-trimmed tins, chocolates with French labels she can't pronounce. In the bedroom, the closet door stands slightly open, like a mouth waiting to speak secrets. Inside, rows of hangers hold clothing in muted colors. Cream, gray, pale blue. All new, all precisely her size, from delicate undergarments to casual wear to evening attire. Some items still bear tags from boutiques whose names she recognizes from the society pages she used to dust around. The attention to detail makes her stomach clench. How long had he been planning this? Had he measured her with his eyes while she worked, calculating the exact curve of her waist, the length of her limbs? The bathroom is a study in luxury, with heated floors and a rainfall shower encased in seamless glass. The marble counter holds crystal bottles of perfume and lotions that smell of jasmine and sandalwood. In the top drawer, beneath folded towels as soft as clouds, she finds an envelope with her name written in precise handwriting, sharp angles and perfect loops that speak of control. Inside, a sleek debit card catches the light, its surface embossed with numbers that represent a freedom she can't access. A note explains it's for incidentals, restricted to in-house purchases only. Even this small freedom has its chains, invisible but unbreakable. The elevator's familiar hum breaks the morning silence, vibrating through the floors like a warning. This time it stops on her floor. Isabel's heart hammers against her ribs, a trapped bird seeking escape. Her palms dampen as footsteps approach, measured, unhurried, confident. Leon appears in the breakfast alcove, impeccable in a charcoal suit despite the early hour. Not a single dark hair out of place, his jawline freshly shaven, smelling of expensive cologne and quiet power. He gestures for her to sit. The small movement somehow both invitation and command. "Custody is not a cage," he says, his voice level and controlled, each word precisely chosen. His accent thickens slightly on the harder sounds, betraying his heritage, despite years of practiced English. "You'll cook, clean, maintain order here. The debt diminishes with each day of service." His words are reasonable, but his presence fills the space like smoke, making it hard to breathe. The air between them seems charged with unspoken rules and consequences. Isabel grips the edge of the table, feeling the cool marble ground her. A financial contract shouldn't require locks and guards, she challenges, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice despite the trembling in her chest. Enemies mistake mercy for weakness. Something flickers in his dark eyes, a shadow passing over depths she can't begin to fathom. The protection is necessary. The last word hangs between them, heavy with implications she doesn't fully understand. When he reaches for his coffee cup, she catches it. a slight tremor in his usually steady hand, there and gone in an instant. He notices her noticing and stills completely, like a predator trying to avoid detection. His fingers tighten around the delicate porcelain, knuckles whitening before relaxing into deliberate calm. The morning stretches on, minutes crawling by with excruciating slowness. Isabel explores her new domain, testing boundaries like a prisoner mapping the walls of her cell. The windows don't open, sealed shut against the city air 30 floors below. The elevator requires a key card she doesn't possess. The Wi-Fi connects only to approved sites, a digital leash. The phone allows only internal calls. Everything is designed to keep her contained while maintaining the illusion of freedom. A gilded cage with spectacular views. Around 11, a woman in a crisp uniform appears with a silver tray, her expression professionally blank. On it sits a delicate bracelet, platinum links catching the midday sun. Simple, but obviously expensive. A tiny light pulses at its clasp, technological purpose disguised as ornament. "For your safety, miss," she explains with practiced politeness, eyes never quite meeting Isabel's. "Mr. Vescari insists." The woman's tone suggests this is not a matter for discussion. Isabel takes the bracelet but doesn't put it on, feeling its cold weight in her palm before slipping it into her pocket instead. A small rebellion, but it's all she has right now. This tiny assertion of will in a situation where choice has become luxury. The afternoon brings new sounds, music filtering up through the building's bones, the steady thrum of preparation. Voices call to each other, footsteps hurry across marble floors far. Below, the charity gala, she remembers hearing the staff discuss it, hushed voices and knowing glances. The thought of all those people below while she's trapped up here makes her feel even more isolated, a ghost watching life happen without her. Leon returns as evening approaches, this time with a garment bag slung over one arm. His entrance is quieter now, less formal. "You'll accompany me tonight," he says, laying the bag across a chair. His gaze assesses her, not unkindly but thoroughly. "Not as a date? You'll manage logistics. Watch. Learn how things work in this world." The last words carry weight, an education she never asked for but might need to survive. Inside the bag, she finds a black dress, conservative but well cut. Professional. The fabric whispers against her fingers, expensive but subdued. A uniform of sorts, marking her role without drawing attention. Visible invisibility, the perfect companion for a man who needs things handled discreetly. The sun sets as she changes, the city lighting up below like a carpet of fallen stars. The dress fits perfectly. Of course it does. Another reminder of unseen eyes measuring her worth. She leaves the bracelet in her pocket, though its weight seems to burn through the fabric, a constant reminder of expectations unmet. Music pulses through the floors now, growing louder as the elevator descends. Bass notes vibrate against the soles of her sensible black heels. Leon stands beside her, his presence both threatening and oddly steadying in the confined space. He doesn't touch her, but she feels his attention like a physical thing, an assessment that misses nothing. Not the absent bracelet, not the determined set of her jaw, not the careful distance she maintains between them. The elevator slows, then stops. Isabel clutches her clipboard, a shield of paper and purpose. She straightens her spine, drawing dignity around herself like armor. The doors slide open to reveal a scene from another world. Crystal chandeliers floating above a sea of wealth and power, jewels catching light and throwing it back in fractured rainbows. Cigarette smoke curls through the air like incense, mingling with perfume and whispered secrets. Beautiful people move through the space like exotic fish, dangerous in their perfection. She steps forward, feeling the weight of her choices pressing down like the heavy clouds that brought last night's storm. Leon's hand hovers near the small of her back, not touching but guiding nonetheless. In less than 24 hours, her world has shifted on its axis. Familiar landmarks erased and replaced with terrain she doesn't know how to navigate. Now she must learn to read this new map, where every luxury comes with a price, every kindness hides purpose, and even the air feels dangerous to breathe, heavy with promise and threat in equal measure. The ballroom swirls with light and shadow, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic patterns across marble floors. Isabel grips her clipboard tighter, her simple black dress helping her blend into the background as she follows Leon through clusters of Milan's elite. Every surface gleams, polished brass, cut crystal, designer gowns that cost more than her yearly salary. Leon moves through the crowd like a shark through deep water, smooth and purposeful. She watches him work the room, noting how a single nod can close deals worth millions. No papers signed, no hands shaken, just the weight of his presence and the quiet authority in his eyes. The shipment arrives Tuesday, a man in a navy tuxedo says, swirling amber liquid in a crystal tumbler. Weather permitting, Leon replies, his tone casual but pointed. Isabel scribbles notes, learning their code. Weather means police presence. Tuesday means something else entirely, she suspects. Throughout the evening, she catalogues the subtle hierarchies at play. Some men approach Leon directly, while others hover at the edges, waiting to be acknowledged. Women in diamonds cast curious glances her way, wondering about the quiet girl with the clipboard who stays 3 steps behind the most dangerous man in the room. Though Leon keeps his distance, never speaking to her directly, she feels his awareness like a tether. He positions himself so she's always in his line of sight, watching without watching. It should feel suffocating. Instead, it feels like being caught in the eye of a storm, the one calm spot in a whirlwind of wealth and veiled threats. The orchestra plays Strauss, the music floating above, conversations about business ventures that sound increasingly like warfare. Isabel's hand cramps from writing, but she doesn't dare stop. Every word might matter later. Such a serious little thing, a voice slurs near her ear. She turns to find a man in his 50s, red-faced from champagne, standing too close in a quiet corridor. Why don't you put down that clipboard and have some fun? His hand lands on her waist, heavy and presumptuous. Before she can step back, Leon materializes like smoke solidifying into stone. Mr. Rossi. Leon's smile is perfectly polite, showing just enough teeth to make the older man pale. I believe your wife was looking for you. Yes, of course. Rossi's hand drops away as if burned. My apologies, I didn't realize she was... I wouldn't have... No harm done, Leon says smoothly, but his eyes promise otherwise. This time. Rossi practically runs back to the ballroom, leaving behind the scent of expensive cologne and fear. Leon vanishes just as quickly, but Isabel feels steadier knowing he's watching. Near midnight, the orchestra begins their final waltz. The heavy air of perfume and politics becomes too much. Isabel slips onto a balcony, gasping in the clean night air. The city sprawls below, a maze of lights and shadows. Earlier, she'd studied every exit, every stairwell, but reality sinks in now. Even if she could reach the ground floor, every door requires biometric access she doesn't have. The night air raises goosebumps on her bare arms. She wraps them around herself, staring at the distant lights of ships in the harbor. Without a sound, Leon appears beside her. He removes his jacket and places it over her shoulders in one fluid motion, then steps away and vanishes back inside. The jacket smells of sandalwood and something darker, like gunmetal, protection offered without demands, warmth without strings. Inside, the gala winds down. Staff begin clearing champagne flutes as guests drift toward the exits. Isabel makes one final round, noting who leaves with whom, which alliances seem strengthened and which have frayed. Her clipboard holds a web of connections she's only beginning to understand. The elevator ride up is silent. Leon stands at parade rest, hands clasped behind his back, while Isabel tries not to fidget with his jacket still draped around her. The suite door opens with a soft click, and she steps inside, carefully folding the jacket over a chair. In her room, the clock's soft glow reads 1:07 a.m. Sleep feels impossible. She lies awake, replaying the evening's subtle power plays and coded conversations. The weight of unspoken rules presses down like a physical thing. From her window, the city glitters with false promises of freedom. Somewhere out there, her family sleeps, unaware of the web she's caught in. Her sister dreams of university while their mother rests in her clinic bed. Both of them safe because of the choice Isabel made in that rain-soaked kitchen. The ceiling offers no answers as she counts the hours. Her clipboard sits on the bedside table, full of notes that read like pieces of a puzzle she's not sure she wants to solve. The jacket on the chair casts a shadow in the dim light, a reminder that in this world, even kindness comes with sharp edges. Time crawls past 1 in the morning, each tick of the clock marking another moment in this gilded cage. The sweet silence feels heavy, broken only by the distant hum of the city that never truly sleeps. Isabel lies still, knowing that somewhere in this building, Leon is likely awake too, moving pieces on a chessboard she's only beginning to see. Sleep comes in fitful bursts, leaving Isabel more exhausted than rested. Dawn creeps through the windows, painting the suite in soft grays and golds. She sits up, mind already mapping possibilities. The bracelet weighs heavy in her pocket, a constant reminder of strings attached. Testing boundaries isn't rebellion, it's survival instinct. She smooths her clothes, checks her reflection, and steps into the private elevator. The descent feels endless, each floor a potential escape route. The lobby stretches out in marble and steel, modern and cold. 2 biometric doors guard the main entrance, their scanners glowing like red eyes. Men in dark suits patrol with practiced indifference, their gazes sliding past her as if she's invisible. Their studied ignorance tells her more than attention would. She's meant to be here, but not free to leave. A service corridor leads to what looks like a fire exit. Hope flutters in her chest until she pushes through to find a balcony dotted with red laser trips. The security system transforms the morning air into a deadly net of light. "Miss Hart?" A guard materializes beside her, voice gentle but firm. "This area requires clearance. Please, let me escort you back upstairs." He keeps a careful distance, never touching her, reciting security protocols like they're discussing the weather forecast. Section 7A restricts access to authorized personnel between Oro 600 and 2200 hours. For your safety, of course. The elevator ride back up feels like admission of defeat. When the doors open to the suite, Leon waits inside. His tie hangs loose, sleeves rolled to expose strong forearms. He looks almost human this way, though no less dangerous. Attempting to breach a safe house carries severe penalties, he says, voice steady. There's no anger in his tone, just fact. He places the contract on the coffee table beside a small velvet box. Open it. Inside lies the same silver bracelet she'd pocketed earlier. Leon lifts it out, the metal catching light like a warning. Without a word, he takes her wrist, fingers warm against her pulse. The clasp clicks shut with quiet finality. This is both tracker and lifeline, he explains, thumb brushing over the delicate links. If you're ever in danger, press here twice. It routes directly to me. His eyes meet hers, dark and serious. My protection is a promise, not a prison. A staff member wheels in breakfast beneath silver cloches, the ritual of service precise and practiced. Isabel watches the careful choreography, how they lift the covers in unison, arrange the settings just so, bow slightly before departing. Everything follows a pattern, as if order itself keeps chaos at bay. The food smells incredible. Fresh bread, eggs, fruit arranged like art. Leon gestures for her to eat, and she realizes these ceremonies aren't just formality. They're anchors, keeping people steady when everything else threatens to spiral. Sunlight streams through the windows now, turning the bracelet to liquid silver around her wrist. The city spreads out below, deceptively peaceful from this height. Distant sirens wail through the glass, a reminder that danger never sleeps in this world. The terms of your contract include protection, Leon says, pouring coffee with precise movements. That means understanding the rules that keep you safe. Isabel cuts into her eggs, buying time to think. And if I refuse the rules? Then you choose to face threats without shields. He stirs his coffee slowly. Your father's ledger made powerful people nervous. They'll want insurance that certain information remains private. The fork pauses halfway to her mouth. What information? That's what they're wondering too. His smile is sharp but genuine, which makes you valuable and vulnerable. The breakfast spreads between them like a peace offering, each dish perfectly arranged. Isabel finds herself studying the careful placement. Nothing random, everything considered. Even the way the staff move shows training beyond simple service. The bracelet, she starts, then pauses to find the right words. It's not just about tracking me, is it? Leon sets down his coffee cup with practiced precision. It marks you as under protection. Most will respect that claim. Those who don't, his shrug speaks volumes. Will learn to. Morning light fills the room completely now, turning the marble floors to rivers of gold. The suite feels less like a cage in this light, more like a fortress. Isabel touches the bracelet, feeling its weight, both physical and symbolic. And when the debt is paid? She asks, though she suspects she knows the answer. By then, you'll understand why the protection needs to remain. He stands, straightening his tie. Finish your breakfast. We have meetings this afternoon. The food is exquisite, but Isabel barely tastes it. Her mind works through implications, counting doors and guards, measuring distances and possibilities. The bracelet catches light with every movement, a constant reminder of her new reality. Through the windows, the city pulses with life far below. Traffic flows like blood through concrete arteries. People move about their normal lives, unaware of the invisible lines of power being drawn in penthouses and boardrooms above them. Your sister's tuition has been paid through graduation, Leon mentions casually, checking his phone. Your mother's medical care is fully covered. Consider it a show of good faith. The words settle, like stones in still water, rippling out with implications. He's not just controlling her present, he's securing her future, building walls of obligation brick by brick. Isabel sips her coffee, letting the warmth steady her. The bracelet glints as she lifts the cup, its presence already feeling familiar against her skin. Outside, sirens continue their distant song, but in here, in this moment, there is only the quiet clink of silver on china and the weight of unspoken expectations. Isabel worked methodically through the study, her cleaning routine already becoming familiar after just a day. The black lacquer desk dominated the space, its surface gleaming like still water. As she wiped down the drawers, something caught, a slight resistance that shouldn't be there. Investigating the runner, her fingers found a manila folder wedged behind it. The paper felt old, worn at the edges. When she eased it free, her father's name jumped out immediately. Her hands trembled as she read. Dates, amounts, signatures. Leon's elegant script marking ownership weeks before her father's loan defaulted. Before she'd ever signed anything. The manipulation hit her like a physical blow. She found him in the kitchen, morning sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. He stood at the espresso machine, the rich scent filling the air as steam rose in delicate spirals. You knew. Her voice was steady, despite the tremor in her chest. You bought my father's debt before I ever signed that contract. Leon didn't turn, just continued preparing his coffee with precise movements. I did. Why? The word came out sharp, cutting through the peaceful morning quiet. Now he faced her, expression carefully neutral. Sit down, Isabel. I want answers first. And you'll have them. He gestured to the sleek bar stools. But this conversation requires context. Something in his tone made her comply, though fury still simmered beneath her skin. He placed an espresso in front of her, the china clicking softly against marble. There was another interested party in your father's debt, he began, leaning against the counter. Marcus Rossi. He has particular tastes in how he collects payment. Ice slid down her spine. She'd heard whispers about Rossi, seen the fear he inspired even in hardened men at the gala. He collects in flesh, Leon continued, his jaw tightening. I prevented that outcome. The contradiction of emotions left her hands shaking around the delicate cup. Anger at being manipulated warred with crushing relief at escaping a worse fate. She'd been a chess piece moved before she knew the game existed. So you saved me. The words tasted bitter. Made yourself my knight in shining armor. I made a business decision. He moved to a cabinet, retrieving a large rolled paper. One that benefited us both. The paper turned out to be a map of the city, which he spread across the counter. Red lines crisscrossed the streets and districts, marking invisible boundaries of power and influence. In our world, debts are currency. His finger traced a territory line. More valuable than money because they buy loyalty, leverage, protection. I chose to spend mine on keeping you safe. Isabel studied the map, seeing her city transformed into a battlefield of competing interests. And what do you get from this investment? Besides preventing valuable information from falling into hostile hands? Leon's smile held no humor. I get someone sharp enough to ask that question, someone who sees the board, not just the pieces. She opened her mouth to respond, but 3 sharp cracks split the air. Gunfire. Close. Too close. Leon moved faster than thought, yanking her off the stool and down behind the kitchen island. The windows shuddered in their frames as more shots followed. Isabel's heart hammered against her ribs as alarms began to shriek through the building. Smoke curled up past the windows, dark against the morning sky. Pressed against the cool marble, Leon's body sheltering hers. She could feel the tension humming through him like a live wire. His arm stayed firm around her waist, holding her steady as chaos erupted around them. The espresso cups still steamed on the counter above, forgotten witnesses to how quickly peace could shatter. Morning sun caught the rising smoke, turning it into twisting ribbons of golden shadow. In those suspended seconds before action, Isabel realized that all the rules and protocols she'd been learning weren't just control. They were preparation for exactly this kind of moment. The bracelet felt heavy on her wrist, its presence both comfort and chain. She could feel Leon's heartbeat where he pressed against her back, surprisingly steady despite the danger. His breath brushed her ear as he listened intently, analyzing threats with practiced precision. Glass crunched somewhere below, followed by shouting. The alarms continued their urgent wail, but underneath she could hear the organized movement of security teams responding to the threat. All those invisible men who had looked past her yesterday were now running toward danger with military efficiency. The smoke thickened outside, carrying the acrid smell of burning rubber. A car horn blared continuously from the street, stuck in a desperate chorus with the alarms. Through it all, Leone remained absolutely still, one hand on her shoulder keeping her in place, the other already holding a weapon she hadn't seen him draw. Morning sun still flooded the kitchen, creating a surreal contrast between domestic peace and violent interruption. The map lay scattered across the counter above them, its careful territories now as disrupted as the morning itself. Isabel's cleaning supplies sat abandoned by the study door, a reminder of how quickly ordinary moments could transform into something else entirely. The espresso machine hummed quietly, oblivious to the chaos, still maintaining its precise pressure and temperature. Steam continued rising from their untouched cups, dissipating into the tense air. These small details anchored her, kept her from drowning in the sudden rush of adrenaline and fear. Aegis 2, secure the west entrance. Aegis 3, I want eyes on that convoy. Leone's commands cut through the chaos as he spoke into a slim radio, his other arm still braced protectively across Isabel's shoulders. Below, gunfire answered gunfire. The acrid smell of smoke grew stronger, and fragments of radio chatter painted a violent picture. Multiple hostiles, coordinated attack, burning vehicles blocking the street. Isabel pressed herself flat against the cool marble of the island, her heartbeat a wild drum in her throat. The bracelet felt like ice against her pulse point, its weight a reminder of just how quickly safety could shatter. A final volley of shots rang out, then silence crashed down like a wave. In that sudden quiet, she could hear the crackle of flames and the steady drip of the espresso machine, surreal in its normalcy. Clear, a voice reported through the radio. 2 vehicles disabled, no casualties on our side. Leone's grip on her shoulder eased slightly. Status on the lobby? Structural damage minimal, glass compromised, security measures held. He helped her to her feet, one hand staying at the small of her back as he guided her through service corridors she hadn't known existed. They emerged in an interior suite several floors down, no windows, thick walls, a generator's steady thrum beneath their feet. Sit, he said, gesturing to the carpet. He took a position opposite her, close enough to touch but maintaining that careful distance he always kept. The room hummed with backup power as he studied her face. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the perfect control he wore like armor. I had a brother once, he said quietly. Younger, brilliant kid, wanted to study medicine instead of joining the family. I was going to make it happen for him. Isabel stayed silent, watching shadows move across his face. There was a woman, he continued. I thought I loved her, thought she loved me. Turned out she loved money more. His hands flexed against his knees. She sold our location to rivals. When they came, Marco tried to fight. A muscle jumped in his jaw. He was 19. The generator's hum filled the space between them as Isabel absorbed the weight of his words. She saw now why he built walls of protocol and procedure, why he measured trust in millimeters. I understand why you're careful, she said finally. But trust isn't meant to be rationed. It's like oxygen. You need it to live. His eyes met hers, stripped of their usual calculated coldness. For a moment, she saw past the armor to the man beneath, one who had learned to equate vulnerability with death. Before he could respond, technicians arrived with scanning equipment, methodically sweeping the rooms for surveillance devices. The afternoon light that filtered down through service shafts took on a hazy quality from the lingering smoke outside. A sudden quiet descended as the power cut out. The generator stuttered, leaving them in complete darkness. Isabel's breath caught in her throat as her other senses sharpened. The carpet beneath her palms, the faint scent of Leone's cologne, the sound of their breathing in the black. 11 minutes stretched like taffy in the dark. They were just 2 people now, stripped of roles and obligations, separated by a meter of carpet and years of careful distance. The air felt charged between them, full of things unsaid. Neither moved to close that gap, though Isabel could feel the pull of it like gravity. This darkness offered a kind of permission they both refused to take. When the lights hummed back to life, their eyes met and held. The quick glance away that usually followed didn't come. Something had shifted in those 11 minutes of darkness. Some wall had developed a hairline crack. The generator stabilized with a low purr. On the wall, a digital clock blinked back to life. 4:20 p.m. Smoke still hazed the city beyond their fortified walls, but in this moment, a different kind of clarity was emerging. Technicians continued their methodical sweep, equipment chirping as they checked for compromised security. Outside, cleanup. Crews were already erasing evidence of the attack. The machinery of Leon's world ground forward, efficient and relentless, but Isabel could see now that efficiency wasn't the same as strength, that control wasn't the same as safety. In the wake of violence, in the aftermath of shared darkness, they had glimpsed something in each other that couldn't be measured or managed. The bracelet caught the fluorescent light, throwing tiny reflections onto the wall. Its weight felt different now. Less like a chain and more like a connection, a tangible link to the man who had shared his deepest wound with her. Leon's phone buzzed with updates and reports, but he didn't immediately reach for it. For these suspended moments, he seemed content to sit in this quiet room, letting the distance between them hold its new significance. Security teams moved through the halls with practiced precision, their footsteps muffled by thick carpet. The building's sophisticated systems hummed back to life one by one, reestablishing the careful order that had been briefly disrupted. But something had changed in that disruption. Trust, like oxygen, had found its way through the smallest cracks, beginning its slow work of transformation. Neither of them acknowledged it directly, but they both felt it, a shift as subtle and significant as the moment between inhale and exhale. Evening light poured through the amber-tinted windows, casting long shadows across the penthouse suite. Leon stood by his desk, his posture relaxed but purposeful, as he handed Isabel a leather folio. "You'll be my personal steward," he said, his voice steady. "It explains your presence, gives you freedom to move within certain boundaries." Isabel opened the slim portfolio, finding pages of precise schedules and strange symbols that looked like elaborate shorthand. "These notations, You'll learn them," he said. "Gradually, security through obscurity." A car waited in the private garage below, sleek and armored, with bulletproof glass thick enough to stop a rifle round. Leon held the door for her, and she slid into the cool leather interior. His security detail moved like shadows, taking positions with practiced efficiency. The private club occupied an Art Deco building downtown, all brass and dark wood. As they approached the entrance, Isabel noticed Leon's subtle movements, the careful removal of his watch, the way he adjusted his cufflinks. She'd seen enough violence in the morning to understand these preparations. Inside, the cigar lounge wrapped them in leather and mahogany. Smoke curled toward coffered ceilings while men in expensive suits conducted business in low voices. Leon's guards positioned themselves discreetly, communicating through slight nods and careful glances, a silent language of protection. A man approached their table, confidence written in his stance. Mid-level power, Isabel assessed, watching how others reacted to him. He wore his ambition like cheap cologne. "Viscari," he said, too familiar. "Interesting morning you had." Leon's response was measured, precise as surgery. "Interesting is for people with time to waste. I have none for amateur theatrics." "Some say your grip is slipping." The man smiled around his cigar. "Some say many things," Leon replied. "Those who matter know better." His words carried weight without heat, devastating in their calm certainty. "Speaking of grip, how's your import business? Shame about those customs delays." Color drained from the man's face. He covered it with a laugh that fooled no one, made his excuses, and retreated. Leon hadn't raised his voice or made a single threat, yet the message was clear as breaking glass. Leaving the club, Isabel felt the city's pulse quickening. Tension hummed in the air like the approach of storm. Leon's victory in the lounge would ripple outward, changing allegiances, shifting balances. The car delivered them back to the penthouse by 9:30. While Leon dealt with security reports, Isabel moved through the kitchen with quiet purpose. The familiar routine of slicing lemons for tea helped steady her hands, gave her mind space to process the day's events. She heard his approach before she saw him, subtle footsteps that he allowed her to notice. When she turned, he stood in the doorway, transformed from the precise machine of public spaces. His tie was gone, collar open at the throat. Wind had ruffled his dark hair, humanizing him around the edges. Neither spoke as she poured tea, the silence between them alive with unspoken words. She noticed how he held his cup, not the careful distance of mourning, but not quite the ease of trust. They were finding a middle ground, step by careful step. The city spread below them like a galaxy of earthbound stars. Later, when sleep proved elusive, Isabel stood at the window, watching light play across glass and steel. Her reflection ghosted over the urban landscape, a woman transformed by circumstance, standing at the intersection of power and vulnerability. The silver bracelet caught moonlight as she moved, reminding her of choices made and choices yet to come. She traced its smooth surface, remembering the weight of Leone's hands as he fastened it, the complex meanings wrapped in that simple band. Traffic sounds drifted up from far below, a distant orchestra of life continuing its normal rhythms despite the day's violence. The clock edged toward midnight as Isabel finally lay down, letting the urban lullaby wash over her. Her mind replayed moments from the endless day, gunfire and silence, darkness and revelation. The generator's hum had become familiar now, a constant reminder of the fortress surrounding her. Yet it was Leone's unguarded moments that occupied her thoughts, that flash of raw truth in the windowless room, the careful distance he maintained even while keeping her close. The bedding whispered as she shifted, soft against her skin. Such luxury in this gilded cage, she thought, though the edges of that cage seemed less defined with each passing hour. The bracelet rested cool against her wrist, its presence both warning and promise. Through the wall, she heard the faint sounds of Leone's movement, papers rustling, a phone's muted conversation, the subtle indicators of a man who rarely slept. She wondered if he, too, was replaying the day's events, analyzing each moment for weakness or opportunity. City lights painted patterns on the ceiling as the clock ticked toward 11:45. The distant traffic faded to a gentle murmur, like waves on a shore far below. Despite the day's chaos, this moment felt almost peaceful, a brief respite before whatever tomorrow might bring. Isabel closed her eyes, feeling the weight of exhaustion settle over her. The bed was soft, the room secure, and somewhere nearby, a man who dealt in violence and power kept silent watch over her sleep. The contradiction of it all, the danger and the protection, the distance and the connection, followed her toward dreams as the city's symphony played on. Sunlight filtered through plastic sheeting where the lobby windows had been, casting warped shadows across the marble floor. The air was thick with chemical fumes and concrete dust as contractors worked to erase yesterday's violence. Isabel watched from the mezzanine as Leone reviewed security credentials, his movements precise and controlled. A worker in gray coveralls caught her attention. The stance, the way he kept his head down while checking sightlines. She knew that predator's shuffle. Rinaldo Ferretti, the man who'd held her father's head under running water while demanding payment, smiling as he struggled. Her hands gripped the railing until her knuckles went white. She made her way to Leone's side, keeping her voice low. The man by the north pillar, Rinaldo Ferretti. He worked collections for the Moretti family. She swallowed hard. He hurt my father. Leone didn't turn his head, but his posture shifted subtly. The change was minute, a slight tensing of his shoulders, a fractional narrowing of his eyes. But the temperature in the room seemed to drop. He touched his earpiece and murmured commands that rippled through his security team. "Ladies and gentlemen," Leone addressed the work crew, his tone courteous but brooking no argument. "Due to an electrical issue, we need to clear the lobby for safety checks. Please follow my staff to the service entrance for processing." The contractors began filing out, guided by guards who made the evacuation look routine. Only Ferretti hesitated, his eyes darting toward exits. Before he could move, Leone's men had positioned themselves at every escape route. "Mr. Ferretti," Leone's voice carried across the marble expanse. "A word about your credentials." They corralled him into a service corridor, away from civilian eyes. Isabel stood slightly behind Leone, her presence both witness and catalyst. Ferretti's bravado crumbled when he recognized her. "You're not here for..." "Repairs," Leone stated. "It wasn't a question." Ferretti's laugh was hollow. "Look, I'm just following orders. The Morettis, they're obsessed with something the old man had, a book. Records going back 20 years. My father's ledger?" Isabel stepped forward, memories clicking into place, the nights he spent writing in his study, the worn leather book he always kept close. "Yeah, pages and pages of who borrowed what, who paid who off, names, dates, amounts." Ferretti's words tumbled out faster as Leone's silence stretched longer. "The Morettis think he documented everything, every dirty loan, every laundered payment, enough to bring down half the families in the city." Leone's expression didn't change, but his eyes grew sharper. "And they sent you to find it. They're desperate. That ledger could destroy them." Ferretti wiped sweat from his upper lip. "The old man died before they could make him talk. They figured the daughter might know where it's hidden." Isabel's mind raced, her father's strange behavior in his final months, the locked drawer in his study, the way he'd insisted she memorize the house's hiding places, just in case. She wasn't just a debt to be collected. She was the key to something that could reshape the city's underground. Leon began to pace, his footsteps echoing in the confined space. If this ledger exists, we move now, before anyone else connects the dots. He turned to his security chief. I want a 4-man team, plain clothes, civilian vehicles, full sweep protocols, but nothing that draws attention. To Isabel, he said, you know the house layout. Every corner, every hollow space. We go together. She nodded, understanding the implicit command. Time was against them. Sir, one of the guards spoke up. What about him? He jerked his chin toward Ferretti, who had sagged against the wall. Leon studied the man who had hurt Isabel's father, his gaze clinical. Secure him in the sub-level holding room. We'll deal with that particular loose end later. As they walked toward the private elevator, Leon's hand settled briefly on Isabel's lower back, a gesture of support that felt more personal than professional. The touch steadied her racing pulse. You didn't seem surprised, she observed, about the ledger. Men like your father, careful men, threatened men, they keep insurance. Leon's voice was quiet. The question was never if he had leverage, only where he hid it. The elevator carried them upward. Through the glass, Isabel could see crews still working on the lobby below, unaware of the currents shifting beneath the surface of their ordinary day. The city sprawled beyond, beautiful and treacherous in the midday sun. In the penthouse, Leon made rapid calls while Isabel changed into dark, practical clothing. She remembered her father's teachings about the house's secrets, the hollow baseboards, the false drawer bottoms, the space behind the kitchen tiles. Each hiding place a potential powder keg waiting to be discovered. By early afternoon, the retrieval team was assembled. 4 men in business casual attire, weapons concealed under light jackets. They would travel in separate cars, maintaining distance until needed. Isabel stood at the window, watching the teams deploy to their vehicles below. The townhouse where she'd served as a maid now held answers that could shift the balance of power in the city. She felt Leon's presence behind her, solid and certain. Ready? He asked. She turned to face him, noting how he'd exchanged his usual suit for darker, more practical clothing that wouldn't draw attention. Even dressed down, he carried authority like armor. Yes, she answered, knowing they were about to cross another line. One that would make yesterday's revelations seem simple in comparison. The clock read 2:45 p.m. as they stepped into the elevator. The descent felt like falling into deeper waters, where late afternoon sun slanted through iron gates as the convoy approached the townhouse. The neighborhood dozed in old-money silence, unaware of the currents stirring beneath its manicured surface. 2 unmarked cars parked at discrete intervals while Leon's vehicle glided to a stop at the servants' entrance. Isabel's fingers brushed the familiar keypad, muscle memory taking over. The annex door opened with a whisper, releasing a wave of familiar scents. Lemon oil, starched linens, and furniture polish. Her world until yesterday. The kitchen first, she murmured, Leon following close behind. His presence filled the narrow service corridor, making it feel smaller than she remembered. Father spent more time there than anywhere else. Said the best conversations happened over tea. The kitchen gleamed, copper pots hanging in precise rows. Isabel moved systematically, checking behind loose tiles, inside hollow table legs, beneath floorboards that creaked just so. Leon's men spread through the lower level, their search professional and silent. Here, she tapped a section of baseboard. This always sounded different. But the hidden compartment held only dust and a forgotten receipt. They checked every flour tin, sugar canister, and coffee container, examined the chair rails and crown molding, probed the spaces behind drawers. Each empty hiding place increased the tension in Leon's shoulders. Perhaps the study, Isabel began, but fell silent as expensive heels clicked on marble. Bianca Moretti appeared in the doorway, wrapped in casual luxury that probably cost more than Isabel made in a year. Her smile was glacier cold. How lovely to see you again, dear. Bianca's voice dripped honey-coated poison. Though I must say, I didn't expect you to return quite so intact. Leon went still, the kind of stillness that preceded violence. Isabel felt the temperature in the room drop. What do you mean? She asked, though something in her already knew. Oh, come now! Bianca adjusted a perfect sleeve. Surely you didn't think it was coincidence that debt collectors appeared the very night you served at my dinner party. That particular creditor has such specific tastes in payment options. Her smile widened. It would have solved the staffing issue so neatly. No severance required. The words hit Isabel like physical blows. She'd served this woman tea, pressed her linens, polished her silver, had listened to her complaints about ungrateful staff while planning her destruction. "You set me up," Isabel whispered. "You told them about my father's debts." "Of course I did. It's just business, darling, nothing personal." Bianca examined her manicure. "Though I must say you've landed on your feet rather spectacularly. Mr. Viscari's protection is quite the upgrade from housekeeping." Leone's hand settled on Isabel's lower back, steady and warm, a reminder that she wasn't alone anymore. "Mrs. Moretti," he said, his voice carrying the chill of a mountain winter, "I suggest you consider very carefully how many enemies you wish to make today." Bianca's smile faltered slightly. "Are you threatening me, Mr. Viscari?" "Not at all, merely offering perspective on certain choices." His tone could have frozen flame. "We'll be leaving now, Isabel?" She let him guide her toward the door, her legs moving automatically. The betrayal sat like acid in her stomach, worse than any bomb or bullet. This was intimate treachery, wrapped in social niceties and served with tea. They were almost to the annex when Bianca called out, "Do give my regards to whoever holds your contract now, dear. I'm sure they'll be much more accommodating than I was." Leone's hand tightened slightly on Isabel's back, the only sign of his fury. She could feel the rage vibrating through him, carefully contained. He was choosing not to respond, not to create complications they didn't need. The rain started as they reached the car, fat drops that promised a downpour. Inside the vehicle's quiet interior, the first sob caught Isabel by surprise. She pressed her hands to her mouth, trying to hold back the storm. Leone said nothing. He simply drew her closer, letting her cry into his shoulder. His arm around her was solid, grounding while she shook apart. The car purred to life, wipers beating a steady rhythm as they pulled away from the curb. Through tears, Isabel watched the townhouse recede. She'd given years of loyal service to that house, to that woman, had pressed tablecloths until they gleamed like fresh snow, had polished silver until she saw her reflection, all while Bianca plotted to feed her to wolves. The convoy moved smoothly through early evening traffic, heading back toward the harbor. Leone's shoulder was warm against her cheek, his expensive shirt probably ruined by her tears. He didn't seem to care. "We'll find the ledger," he said quietly when her sobs had subsided to hiccups. "Tonight, tomorrow, however long it takes." His voice carried absolute certainty. "And when we do, we'll make sure Mrs. Moretti regrets her idea of business practices." Isabel nodded, too drained to speak. The wipers kept their steady rhythm, like a lullaby for predators. The city lights began to blur in the rain-streaked windows as they crossed the bridge toward the harbor district. She was done with being prey. The penthouse felt different in twilight. Shadows pooled in corners where afternoon sun usually blazed, and the city's lights were just beginning to sparkle through the glass walls. Isabel's fingers trembled as she pulled the old cookbook from her bag, her mother's favorite, grabbed by instinct when Leone's men collected her that first night. Something about its weight felt wrong. She ran her hand along the spine, feeling an irregularity in the binding. The kitchen was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and distant traffic far below. Moving to the counter, she found a paring knife and carefully worked it along the spine's edge. The cover split cleanly, revealing a hollow core packed with tissue-thin pages. Her father's handwriting filled every inch, names, dates, amounts, transfer routes, shell companies. The ledger everyone wanted, hidden in plain sight in a book of comfort food recipes. Isabel's throat tightened. Here was power that could tear down empires, written in her father's precise accountant's hand. She could practically feel the weight of all the lives these records could destroy or save. "I should take this to the police," she said aloud, knowing Leone would hear. He always seemed to know when something shifted in his domain. He materialized in the doorway, tie loosened, sleeves still crisp. "That would be unwise." "Unwise?" Isabel's laugh held no humor. "This is evidence of decades of crime. People need to answer for what they've done. And how many innocent people get caught in that net?" Leone moved closer, his steps measured. "How many legitimate businesses collapse when their loans vanish? How many families lose everything because their breadwinner goes to prison? So we do nothing? Let corruption keep festering?" "No." His voice was steel wrapped in silk. "We use this surgically, precisely. Cut out the cancer without killing the host." "You mean use it to consolidate power?" Isabel clutched the ledger closer. Leverage it for your own gain. I mean, use it to protect people who need protecting. A muscle ticked in his jaw. Law enforcement is a sledgehammer. This requires a scalpel. And I'm supposed to trust your judgment? The words came faster now, heated. Trust that you'll use this information for good? You're not exactly an impartial party here. Leon's eyes narrowed. What exactly are you implying? Maybe this was your plan all along. The ugly thought that had been growing in her mind finally burst free. Buy my debt, stage a rescue, make sure I found this ledger. It's all very neat, isn't it? The timing, the recognition in the lobby, everything falling into place so perfectly. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Leon went absolutely still, the kind of stillness that preceded earthquakes. You think I orchestrated your father's death? His voice was barely above a whisper. Manipulated you into debt? Arranged for rivals to try to kill us both? It would be a brilliant play, wouldn't it? Isabel's hands were shaking now. Get the ledger and a grateful girl all in one move. Perfect control. Something cracked in Leon's expression. Just for a moment, but she saw it. Raw pain, quickly masked. She'd hit the wound where his brother's memory lived, she realized. The thought should have made her stop, but the words kept coming. How can I trust anything when my whole life has become a chess game I didn't agree to play? She reached for the silver bracelet on her wrist. When safety comes with strings and protection means control? The clasp opened with a soft click. She set the bracelet on the kitchen island, the metal making a final sound against the marble, like a ring returned after a broken engagement. If this is what safety costs, she said quietly, I can't breathe. Leon looked at the bracelet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried none of its usual command. Doors here open both ways, Isabel. She slipped the ledger into her pocket, its edges sharp against her hip. The city lights sparkled beyond the windows, promising answers, or at least the illusion of them. The service elevator would take her down to street level. From there, she could walk into any police station and end this game. Her feet carried her to the door. Leon didn't move to stop her, didn't call out, didn't try to reason with her. He simply stood in the kitchen, perfectly still, watching her choose. The clock on the wall read 10:07 p.m. as she stepped into the hallway. Each stride carried her further from the man who had saved her and closer to what she told herself was right. But rightness had never felt so much like loss. The elevator waited at the end of the corridor, its polished doors reflecting her approaching figure like a mirror showing possible futures. She pressed the call button, hearing the mechanism whir to life behind the walls. Her father's handwriting pressed against her hip through layers of fabric and secrets. In her mind, she could still see Leon's expression when she'd accused him of orchestrating everything. Not anger, pain. The kind of pain that came from having trust broken before, from losing someone to betrayal. The elevator chimed softly. Its doors slid open with expensive smoothness, revealing the small space that would carry her down to street level, to what she'd convinced herself was justice. Behind her, the penthouse waited in twilight silence. Ahead, the city sparkled with deceptive promise. The ledger felt heavier with each passing second, as if her father's ghost was weighing in on her choice. She stepped into the elevator, her reflection fragmenting across its mirrored walls. The numbers above the door glowed. 10:09 p.m. Time moving forward, carrying her with it, while everything else hung suspended between heartbeats. Her finger hovered over the lobby button. One press would set everything in motion, evidence would be logged, arrests would be made, empires would crumble. And something else, something harder to name, would shatter beyond repair. The loading bay's fluorescent lights cast sickly shadows across the concrete. Isabel's footsteps echoed in the empty space as she clutched the ledger closer. The night air carried the scent of salt from the harbor, and somewhere, a metal door creaked. The attack came without warning, a hand clamped over her mouth, another pinning her arms. The ledger dropped, papers scattering like dead leaves. She kicked backward, connecting with something solid, but more hands grabbed her legs. Through the chaos, she glimpsed dark clothes, masked faces, efficient movements. A van's side door rolled open with a metallic groan. Someone shoved her forward, and the city tilted sideways as they lifted her in. The door slammed shut with finality, leaving her in darkness that smelled of oil and fear. Chemical sweetness pressed against her face. The world went soft, then black. She woke to cold metal against her wrists. Zip ties bit into her skin as she tested their grip. The warehouse air hung heavy with diesel fumes and damp rope, making her head swim. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness, marking time like a broken metronome. A red light blinked steadily from a camera mounted on a tripod. Behind it, a figure stepped into the weak light, filtering through grimy skylights. "Miss Hart!" The voice was cultured, almost pleasant. "So kind of you to join us. We have a simple arrangement to discuss." She squinted against the camera's harsh spotlight. The man's suit was expensive, his smile practiced. Everything about him felt like a shark wearing human skin. "You're going to help us correct some unfortunate misconceptions about the Viscari organization," he continued, adjusting his cuffs. "A simple statement about their methods of debt collection, how they fabricate loans, force signatures, kidnap innocent workers." "That's not what happened," Isabel said, her throat dry. His smile didn't waver. "Truth is negotiable, Miss Hart. Your safety, however, is not." Up in the penthouse, Leon stood very still before the kitchen island. The silver bracelet lay beside the sliced open cookbook like abandoned armor. His fingers touched the metal briefly, feeling its emptiness. He did not shout, did not break things, did not waste energy on displays of rage. Instead, he moved with terrible purpose. Hidden panels in the office walls slid aside at his touch, revealing screens and communications equipment. His fingers flew across keyboards, accessing security feeds, traffic cameras, satellite views. In minutes, he had the loading bay footage showing the snatch, the van's make and partial plate. "Alessio." His voice was quiet in the comm piece. "Mobilize." "Alpha Team." Full tactical loadout. His oldest lieutenant responded instantly. "Parameters?" "Extraction with extreme prejudice. They have Isabel." A pause. "Understood." "Timeline?" "We move as soon as we have coordinates. Call in every marker we have. I want eyes on every corner of the city." Leon's network activated like a spreading web. Dock workers reported van sightings. Traffic controllers provided light patterns. Surveillance drones tracked heat signatures in abandoned buildings. Each piece of data narrowed the search, drawing the net tighter. In a secure room below the penthouse, Alessio briefed the strike team. Men in black tactical gear checked weapons with practiced efficiency. Suppressors screwed into place with soft clicks. Smoke canisters were counted and distributed. Body armor settled onto shoulders with familiar weight. "Primary objective is the asset's extraction," Alessio said, marking points on a clear plexiboard. "Secondary is site denial. We go in quiet, but if they've harmed her, we go loud on exit." Leone entered, his usual suit replaced by tactical black. The room stilled at his presence. "If she bears a single scar," he said softly, "we salt the earth. Every safe house, every business front, every account. No piece left standing." The men nodded. They had seen this Leone before, the one who emerged when lines were crossed, the one who had built an empire on precise violence and kept it through calculated mercy. Maps spread across tactical tables showed approach routes highlighted in red, backup positions marked in blue, fallback points in green. Every angle considered, every contingency planned. In the warehouse, Isabel tested the zip ties again. The plastic cut deeper but didn't yield. The camera's red eye watched unblinking as her captor paced, checking his phone with increasing frequency. "The statement, Miss Hart. Simple words, that's all we need. Then this unpleasantness ends." She tasted copper where she'd bit her lip. "And if I refuse?" His smile turned sharp. "Then we find more persuasive methods of encouragement." Time crept forward like cold molasses. Water still dripped in the darkness. The sky began to lighten imperceptibly through the grimy skylights, painting the warehouse shadows in shades of pre-dawn gray. Outside, engines hummed to life. A convoy of black vehicles pulled away from the penthouse, moving like shadows through empty streets. Inside the lead SUV, Leon checked his weapon one final time. The silver bracelet lay in his pocket. A reminder of promises, made and broken and about to be renewed. Alessio's voice came through the comms. "Strike teams in position, awaiting your order." The first real light of dawn bled through the warehouse skylights, painting strips of gold across the concrete floor. In the distance, engines growled closer, bringing with them the promise of violence precisely applied. Leon's voice was steel in the darkness. "Execute." The warehouse air thickened with pre-dawn. Shadows, as Leon's team moved like ghosts through the loading bay. Their entrance was soundless, coordinated through hand signals and tactical formation honed by years of operation. A friendly dispatcher had mapped the blind spot perfectly, a gap between security cameras where the old building's architecture created a natural shadow path. Smoke canisters rolled across the concrete floor with soft metallic clicks. Within seconds, white fog billowed upward, triggering ancient sprinkler systems that hissed to life, creating a disorienting curtain of mist and water. Inside the main space, Isabel's wrists burned from the zip ties, but her mind remained sharp. The camera's red eyes still blinked, recording what could become propaganda or worse, a spark for territorial war. She couldn't let them have even a fragment of false confession to splice and weaponize. Gritting her teeth, she threw her weight sideways. The chair tipped, and she hit the ground hard. The impact jolted through her shoulder, but she managed to kick out, catching the tripod. The camera crashed down, lens cracking against concrete, its red eye finally going dark. "You stupid bitch!" The boss's polished veneer cracked. His expensive shoe connected with the chair, but Isabel was already moving, shuffling beneath it like a turtle with its shell. Using the metal frame as improvised cover from the door sightline, she counted breaths like her father had taught her during panic attacks. 1, 2, 3. Each inhale measured, each exhale controlled. The chaos beyond her immediate space grew, shouts, the drum of boots, the crack of suppressed gunfire. Through the artificial fog, Leon materialized like an avenging shadow. His movements were precise, lethal grace wrapped in tactical black. But when he reached her, his hands were unexpectedly gentle on her abraded wrists as he sliced through the restraints. "With me," he murmured, the words meant for her alone. His body became a shield, moving in perfect sync with her as they advanced toward the exit. Water dripped from his hair, making him look somehow more dangerous, a creature of storm and shadow choosing to be her guardian. "You think this ends here, Vescari?" The rival boss's voice carried through the chaos, strained, but still trying for control. "That ledger will bury you too. There's no clean money in this city. The rot goes all the way down." Leon's answer came calm and clear. "The difference between rot and rule isn't in the ledger entries. It's in what you choose to protect, who you answer to in the quiet hours when there's only your reflection for company." The boss laughed, a harsh sound. "Pretty words from a pretty prince, but we both know." His words cut off as Alessio emerged from the smoke, dragging a bloodied Ferretti. The enforcer had a split lip and the panicked look of a man who'd switched allegiances mid-fight to save his own skin. In his free hand, he clutched the ledger, its pages damp but intact. "Found him trying to slip out the back," Alessio reported. "With this!" The moment crystallized. Isabel looked at the ledger, her father's secret burden, his attempt at insurance or perhaps redemption. It could expose corruption across the city's powerful families. It could dismantle empires, including the one currently protecting her. She moved before conscious thought, taking the ledger from Ferretti's trembling grasp. The weight of it felt different now, heavy with more than paper and ink. Every eye in the warehouse tracked her movement as she stepped toward Leon. This wasn't choosing crime over justice. This was choosing the man who had proved his word with action, who had come through smoke and fire to find her, whose protection wasn't perfect, but was perfectly intentioned. She placed the ledger in his hands, a gesture of trust that spoke louder than any confession. His fingers closed around it, but his eyes never left her face. In that look was understanding, acknowledgement of the weight of her choice. "Clear to move," Alessio's voice cut through the moment. "Local police band shows response incoming, 8 minutes out." Leon nodded once, sharp. "Execute exit plan, Charlie. Secure the package, clean the site." The team moved with practiced efficiency. Zip ties secured the survivors. Evidence disappeared into tactical bags. Smoke machines were recovered. Brass was collected, and every trace of their presence began to evaporate, like the mist still hanging in the air. They emerged into pale morning light, the sun just beginning to burn off the harbor fog. Sirens wailed in the distance, but they were already moving, sliding into vehicles that would scatter across the city through pre-planned routes. In the back of the lead SUV, Leon finally allowed himself to exhale. Water still dripped from his tactical gear onto the leather seats. He turned to Isabel, who sat straight-backed, despite her ordeal, dignity wrapped around her like armor. His forehead came to rest against hers, the gesture brief but laden with meaning. It was acknowledgement of what she'd risked, what she'd chosen. It was a promise written in the language of shared breath and silent understanding. Not that he would keep her safe. They both knew safety was an illusion in their world, but that he would never stop trying. The moment held, intimate despite the tactical gear and the lingering scent of smoke, perfect despite the sirens dopplering past on distant streets. Then Alessio cleared his throat from the front seat, and they separated. professional masks sliding back into place as the convoy carried them toward morning. Late afternoon sun slanted through half-closed blinds, casting copper stripes across Leon's private office. The ledger lay open on his desk, its pages fanned out like cards in a high-stakes game. Isabel watched as he separated them with surgical precision, sorting them into careful piles that would reshape the city's power structure. "These go to the federal prosecutor," Leon said, tapping one stack. "Clean evidence, properly channeled. The rival syndicate collapses, but civilians stay clear of the blast radius." Isabel studied the methodical way he worked, noting how he protected certain names, people who'd been caught in the undertow of desperate circumstances, like her father. And the others? Subpoenas instead of bullets. He looked up, his eyes catching the dying light. Change doesn't always need blood to stick. Through the window, they could see black sedans pulling away from buildings across the district. Quiet arrests had already begun, conducted with paperwork instead of firearms. Leon's phone buzzed steadily with updates from his network, each message another piece of the city's realignment falling into place. "I'm establishing 2 legitimate fronts," he continued, pulling up documents on his laptop. "A logistics firm to handle the clean operations and a foundation to manage community investment." His fingers moved across the keyboard with purpose. "Several lines of business will be permanently retired, not as theater, as evolution." Isabel recognized the significance. He wasn't just changing tactics, he was transforming his empire into something she could live with, something that wouldn't taint their shared future with necessary compromises. She reached into her pocket and withdrew the silver bracelet, the tracker she'd rejected in anger. This time, when she placed it on his desk, the gesture carried different weight. "Not as a shackle," she said softly, "as a memory of where we started." Leon's expression shifted, subtle but profound. He opened a drawer and removed a small box, offering it without flourish. Inside lay a slender band of white gold, elegant in its simplicity. "No tracker," he said. "Just belonging." The new ring slid onto her finger like it had been waiting there. Through the window, the harbor stretched out below them. The same view where everything had begun in rain and uncertainty. Now the sky was clear, the wind fresh off the water. "Walk with me," she said. They took the private elevator down and emerged into early evening light. The harbor promenade was quiet, most workers already headed home. Their security detail maintained discreet distance, almost invisible against the backdrop of the city. Isabel stopped at a railing where boats bobbed gently at anchor. "I have terms," she said, "for our life together." Leon turned to face her, giving her his complete attention. The focus that could command armies now centered entirely on her words. "I need my own accounts," she began, "independent means, and a trust for my mother's ongoing care at the clinic, ironclad and separate from any other business." She watched his face as she continued. "My sister's education, fully funded, through whatever degree she chooses. And most importantly, a clear line between your work and our home. Some doors stay closed, some rooms stay clean." He didn't immediately respond, taking time to weigh, each requirement with the gravity it deserved. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but certain. "Yes to all of it. Not as concession, but as foundation." The wind off the water lifted her hair, carrying away the last threads of tension. Leon stepped closer, one hand coming to rest at the small of her back. "You are mine," he said, the words carrying no possession, only promise. "Not by contract, but by choice. Forever." The city was shifting around them, power changing hands in boardrooms and back alleys. But here they had found their own kind of peace. They walked back as darkness began to settle, taking a different elevator to a different apartment. One Leon had prepared while she wasn't looking. This space had fewer mirrors and more books, warm woods instead of cold marble. The kitchen actually looked used, with copper pots hanging above a real stove. 2 mugs sat steaming on the coffee table, and through the windows, the city spread out like a map they had redrawn together. Isabel moved through the rooms, noting thoughtful touches. Her favorite blanket draped over a reading chair, family photos already framed and placed with care, a desk by the window with a view of both sunrise and harbor. The apartment breathed with life instead of echoing with power. "You planned this," she said, turning to find Leon watching her with quiet satisfaction. "I hoped," he corrected. "There's a difference." She picked up one of the mugs, chamomile with honey, exactly as she preferred. The ceramic was warm against her palms, grounding her in this moment that felt both surreal and perfectly right. Through the windows, lights were coming on across the skyline. The same city that had once felt like a maze of threats now looked more like a territory they had learned to navigate together. Not tamed, perhaps. They both knew better than to believe in complete control, but understood, mapped, shared. Leon moved to stand behind her, his reflection in the glass overlapping with hers. His hand found hers, fingers brushing over the new ring that meant belonging without bondage. Below them, the harbor lights rippled on dark water, and somewhere in the distance, a ship's horn sounded. Heading out to sea or coming home to port, it was impossible to tell which.